Welcome to Career Bits, the podcast of the University Career Center at UNC Charlotte. I'm Jay.
I'm Patrick.
I'm Jesse.
And I'm Matthew.
You can now not only listen to this podcast wherever you find podcasts, but you can see the video version. Hello, our happy faces. Follow the University Career Center's YouTube page, and each week you'll see the video posted the same time we post the podcast. Why are we doing a video of a podcast, you may ask? Well, if you go back through the archives, there's, 8 or 10 episodes where we talk about how to be engaging in virtual environments, and it finally dawned on me, maybe we should model this behavior for you all. So here we are.
Yay!
But seriously, thank you again.
For better or worse.
Yes, but seriously, thank you all for tuning in and listening wherever you're finding the show. We appreciate it. So this week, we're talking about recruiting and the recruiting process. And you may think to yourself, oh, I'm a freshman. This doesn't matter to me. Contraire, mon frere. It applies to you whether you're a freshman or you're a 10-year alumni. We're going to walk you through some questions about the entire recruitment process, how employers find you, all of that good stuff, give you some good tips and resources to follow up on, and then talk about some upcoming cool things that we've got going on here in the office. So Patrick, kind of want to start with you on this because this was your brainchild of the idea for the episode. Let's start with how employers find our candidates.
Sure. So I think before we answer that direct question, let's talk about how recruiters are looking for talent. Like, where do they go to find people, if you will? And I put people in quotes. There's a couple things. One is there's a lot of research that was been done on the top 10 ways that recruiters go out and find talent. And then there was the top 10 ways that students try to find opportunities or jobs. And so this research was done by all of our association a couple years ago. And the number one way that recruiters find talent is through social media, LinkedIn, those types of things. So right there, 95% of all employers use that system to source talent, post positions, learn about you, and find you through, of course, their networking. So that's the number one way. And now I'm going to ask you guys, where do you think that falls on the top 10 ways that students try to find opportunities? What do you guys think out of the top 10?
Matthew, you're the LinkedIn expert. Yeah.
I will say top 5 just because students are more engaging on LinkedIn now, especially with COVID. But in the past, maybe top 5, maybe like 5th place.
Okay. Jesse, what do you think?
I'm going to guess a little bit lower, to be honest. I mean, yeah, to Pat's point, maybe things have increased a little bit since COVID, but I'm guessing more on the bottom.
I'm going to say $1, Bob.
$1? Oh, my God. Jesse, you were there. So around 6 or 7. That's 10 ways that candidates go find opportunities. Number 7 is LinkedIn. Number 1 was just going to general job websites and hoping to find jobs that are out there. Mm-hmm. That's mind-blowing if you think about it. So if recruiters are right here looking for candidates, and students are right over here, they're going right by each other, which is why when we say, how are you going to connect with recruiters, you got to find where they are. And they are in LinkedIn. They are networking with people because what they're trying to do, and this is my next conversation, you can tell I geek out on this, right? What they're trying to do is they're trying to reduce their risk and making sure that they're hiring the right person for their needs right now. And the way they reduce that risk is by who they know. So if they know great people and great candidates, then chances are those great candidates know other great candidates, which is the art of networking. Because it's not about how many people you know, it's about how many people know you. That's the key of what we're trying to do when you're trying to connect with recruiters. So when you say, how are recruiters finding our candidates? LinkedIn, career fairs for sure, believe it or not. And of course, when they post in My49er, they're looking for UNC Charlotte students. That's a little bit different than other posting sites out there where they post to one university and it's for every single university. For My49er, when they post to us, they're looking for UNC Charlotte students. So there's a big thing there that we need to pay attention to.
Absolutely. So, Jesse, Matt, I want to ask you guys something real quick. As we know that now, and we emphasize that to students all the time, when you're in My49er, it is vastly important that you not only keep your resume in there, but that you update that puppy on a routine basis, right? So what's the best strategy for updating that thing without having to, write a new one every 5 seconds that you want to? Because you want to try to customize those, we know, for each job, but that can be a little cumbersome. So Jess, what do you think?
Oh gosh, yes. You definitely don't want to have to update your resume every single time you find the most amazing job in the world and you have to apply tomorrow. That's never fun, but we've all been there. So what I encourage students and alumni to do is to kind of create what I call the master copy of your resume. So this might be much longer than your traditional one-page document that you'll upload for specific jobs and specific internships to hire a niner, but rather it's the whole compilation of everything that you've done. So that way you're not losing track of that student organization you were a part of, or that summer internship from a couple summers ago that might not be relevant to the job you're applying for tomorrow, but it could be for the internship you're looking at next summer. So that way you're not losing track of those little pieces, those job responsibilities that might feel a little bit fuzzy if you're trying to totally remake your resume again every single time you want to apply to a new job. That's my best piece of advice.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Like whenever students ask like, oh, well, you know, why is it important for me to go through and make sure that my resume is at least tailored towards the role? And, you know, there are those applicant tracking systems that look for keywords. So I always really encourage students and alumni as well to go through and find 3 jobs or internships that you're absolutely in love with. Not ones that you're just kind of like, that would be cool, but like a direction, right? So if you're interested in art, make sure you're finding those art internships, right? If you're interested in sales, finding those sales internships. And I'm a big believer in printing them out. That's right, print them out, print out at least 3 descriptions. Go through and highlight where you see common skill sets, common buzzwords across those 3, and then integrate them into your resume. And then you hopefully don't have to edit it as much, because if we're on 3, it's likely going to be on the other ones you're applying for. But you'll have to do that, honestly, for each type of profession or job internship you're looking for. So you might have a resume, like for me, I have a resume for higher ed and career services, higher ed teaching as an adjunct. I have one for working in retail, you know, in case I ever want to get a discount again. I also have one for social media. I have one for diversity and inclusion. And it takes all of my different experiences and I just reframe them for the employer or the recruiter based on the types of positions I'm going for.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we've hit on now where employers find us, where our students can find things. So I'm going to lay out what I would like to call like the triple whammy of a job search and how to really find yourself. So you do what Matt said, you find the thing you're in love with, or the things that like, yes, I want to apply for these. I'm really into this company. So you start tailoring your stuff together, you get ready to apply. But before you submit that and hit that apply button, go to the UNC Charlotte alumni page and say, okay, do we have alums that work there? Can I connect to somebody here? Can I talk to a professor, or maybe, you know, my classmate or my fraternity brother or whatever that graduated 2 years ago, he went to work for him. Maybe his girlfriend's cousin does, whatever. Can I connect to somebody and say, hey, can you let Jesse at XYZ know that I'm applying for this job? Because now you not only become a number that goes in the applicant tracking system, there's somebody on the other end to go grab it, pull it out and go, I'm going to take an extra look at that because this person reached out to me. And so when in doing that connection, you say, hey, I'm applying for this job with this piece. If you know anybody that you can put in a word for me, I'd really appreciate it. Go Niners, you know, do whatever you got to do, and that'll get you through the door. Do you agree?
And how many times have we heard from our recruiters that same thing? If we hear about somebody, I'm going to go into that pile and put them at the top of the pile. That, again, networking, it's about connecting with people, and we can still be doing that through this virtual world. Go out there and connect to people. And when you're networking, it's not, hey, I'm looking for a job. I don't know who you are, but you should hire me. It's about building a connection. We're humans still, take away all the social media from your face and start connecting with human beings. And that's going to make it so your resume will go higher in the pile, because again, it's going back to that idea of reducing their risk. They want to hire the right person because it means money and time for every organization, whether it's a nonprofit or a for-profit organization.
I would also say too, when you're making those connections with an alum or, you know, somebody else at the organization that may not be the direct hiring person, but they're the person that you're trying to get in front of to connect you to them, always go into the attitude of like, what can I offer this person that might be of use to them in some way? Like, hey, I read your recent post. I thought that was a great article. Love to talk with you more about it. Also, I'm applying for this job. Like, go with something in hand to say, what can I do to be mutually beneficial in this relationship with you?
Yeah.
And another
Make
pro
sure
tip.
Well, Jesse?
Ladies first.
Woohoo! All right. I was going to say real quick to jump onto that. Another pro tip, when you have that conversation with someone, whether it's an alumnus, whether it's a recruiter, thank them for their time. You might not have had a formal interview, and that's okay. That is just such a simple thing to send them a quick thank you. I really appreciate it. And then to be super strategic, also attach your resume to that email, because you never know who they might be able to pass it along to. Matt, all you.
Yeah, girl. No, I totally agree. And I think, a couple of strategies that I find super helpful is read that job description, especially near the top, because sometimes the position descriptions will tell you who you're reporting to, and then go search for them on LinkedIn and try to connect with them. You can also use something called hunter.io, hunter.io. It'll help you maybe find their email to email them directly, to let them know that you're just interested in the role and you maybe want to learn more about the position, learn more about the company culture, but also learn more about them as a person, right? And then the other thing that I would really suggest, and this is something I do throughout the week, is holding like virtual just chat sessions with people. Maybe having a virtual drink with them or a virtual coffee, whatever, and just chatting with them, getting to know them more as a person. Most people are really open to that because you're still making those connections. And I do it just to kind of, one, keep my connections strong, because it's important, especially in the work that we're in, to have those strong connections. But also, I just love learning about people and their careers. So really utilizing
Matt, I'm still waiting for my chat. I mean,
I feel the same way.
I mean, like, what?
I know I'm sitting here going, like, well, Matt's doing that with everybody but us. No, that's making a great point.
But you gotta maintain your contacts as well. What's going on here?
No, Matt, you're making
I talk to you all way too much.
It dovetails off of something what Patrick said. It's about getting to know people and who knows you. Networking is about building relationships and building a brand. And those two things simultaneously, and you can do them at the same time if you invest in them. You invest in the time. So we've talked a lot about networking and things like that. When is the time to apply? Like when do we start looking? Now, right?
All the time. And I'm going to flip the script a little bit. And this idea of go out there and meet a lot of people. And I love what Matt said, where he says, find a couple job descriptions, find the best parts of those positions, expand your targets. When I talk with students, a lot of times I ask them, like, where do you want to work? And they rattle off maybe 3 companies. And after that, they're like, I don't know what else exists. And there's millions upon millions of companies out there, small, medium, and large, and they all have their different processes. So when you say, when are you going to start your job search? Man, it starts from day one. It's about networking. It's about analyzing what companies make sense for you. What are the values that those companies talk about? And do they actually have behavior after those values? And do they match with you? I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into it. And a lot of big companies do all the recruitment in the fall semester because that's just how they roll. Government tends to do it throughout the year. But again, their fiscal year is a little bit different than for-profits, for example. And then there's small businesses, medium-sized businesses, nonprofits that are just in time sorts of hires. So it's all the time.
Yeah, I love it when I talk to students and they say, yeah, I've applied for like 6 jobs. I'm like, that's awesome. That's a hobby. Like, no, if you're job searching and you're internship searching, whatever it is, you're always looking for the next
every day. When my father used to talk to me about, if you don't have a job, your job is to find a job, which means 8 hours a day with a lunch break. You were out there doing what Matt and Jesse have been talking about, talking with people, getting your application out there, updating your resume. Your job is to find a job if you're really, really motivated to get to that next step.
All right, Matt and Jesse, how do you keep up with all of that, though? Because as somebody who is kind of not a natural organizer per se, that still blows my mind to think about how I organize my job searches. So what's the best way for a student to keep up with all that, in addition to schoolwork and all the other stuff they're trying to keep up with?
Oh my gosh, so this is the toughest part, is keeping track of everything that you're applying for. So my recommendation is to keep an Excel doc, or again, a Google sheet, whatever that works best for you, a notebook. If you're old school and like to write things down, all about that.
Can we do it on TikTok? Is that a thing?
Yeah, Patrick, if you don't mind demonstrating for us though, that's a good idea.
I know it's a stopwatch of some sort, right?
But making sure that you're keeping track of all of those details, including, and I'm just going to rattle off some ideas here, the date that you apply, obviously the position itself and the employer, a link to the position. However, that being said, you never know if the position's still going to be open. They might take it down when it closes. So you want to make sure separately from this document, you also copy and paste what that job description is, so that if you get a phone call from an employer in 8 weeks and you have 37 applications plus out there. And they're saying, hey, Jesse, I would love to set up an appointment with you to talk through such and such position. And you're thinking, gosh, I don't even remember that I applied for that role. That's why it's going to be really great to not only look back and see what the heck the job was that you applied for, but you can remind yourself what that job was all about. A couple of things you want to keep track of: the contact information for the employer, if it's included in there, or like Matt mentioned, even just who you'll be direct reporting to, or generally speaking, who you report to. And also when the position closes, because you want to make sure that if you haven't followed up already, the day that that position closes, reach out to them, say, hey, just checking out on my application, want to see where you all are in the process. Same concept that we talked about earlier. The more you reach out, the more you connect, the higher your name is going to jump up that list and get noticed. So it's a lot to keep track of. It's exhausting. It feels like a full-time job to apply for a full-time job or an internship, but it's worth it.
Yeah, but if you build it in as part of your day, I mean, if you've gotten to this point in your academic career, you're doing well, you know how to manage your time and build in study time and stuff like that. So just build in time to do some LinkedIn connecting, build in time to do a little bit of job search maintenance, whatever that is, whether it's updating your notebook or updating your Google Sheet or refreshing your applications, whatever that might be. It can make a huge difference. Now, Matt, what kind of interviews can people expect, particularly in this format and things like that? What are we seeing people do?
Yeah, so, I mean, there's a lot of options. Like Patrick was talking about, all of the employers have different processes. So some employers may right now do initially like a virtual interview with you, but it might not be a person on the other side. It could be like a pre-interview before your telephone interview.
So I would say a dog doing an interview for you.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So you would go.
Anything's possible in this world.
It really is. And I mean, it's all over the place. And I would say, especially for early careers or internship programs where there's a lot of applications, you're going to see employers use that virtual aspect first, where they can share them easily amongst the team. They can look at all these different videos. A good practice for that we have here at UNCC is biginterview.uncc.edu, where you can go in and you can practice that virtual interviewing. There's also a new AI function on it that can kind of help you out with like eye contact, things like that. There's also playbooks in there based on identities. So veteran, career changer, LGBT, all these different identities that go into interviews. You might also then get a telephone interview, which is sometimes first, sometimes second. You might also get a Zoom interview, like a virtual interview like this, where there's multiple people on the call from the company who's interviewing you singularly. And then you might also run into things where it's one recruiter who has maybe 5 applicants in a Zoom room and they're doing a group interview with you. It's really all over the board. It really depends on your industry as well as the employer you're working with. So make sure you're well versed in the types of interviews that you're going to be encountering, and make sure you reach out to career coaches for help with interviewing and for help with the different types of interviews, because it's really important that you go into it being prepared with knowledge. And I think that's what, in general, I see students struggle with the most, is that knowledge of all of the possibilities that might happen during a particular interview and not asking questions. And the students that I have seen succeed the most are the ones who can get over the initial fear and get their confidence up around interviewing, around outreach to employers, around networking. One student in particular just was super quiet, didn't have a lot of confidence in their writing, and now they've had internships at BuzzFeed, they've written for BuzzFeed, they've done all this amazing stuff, and now they're going for their master's, and they have a full scholarship on just writing for the film industry. And that was because they even told me, your help of getting my confidence up around my career brain is what really helps. So make sure you take use of the career coaches and mentors that you have in your life to help you kind of get over that initial hump, so that way you can really excel in your overall career planning.
Excellent advice. And I want to say a part of that too, in addition to Big Interview and working with our career coaches, pro tip, by the way, if you set up an appointment with a career coach and you want to talk about an interview, send them the job or jobs you're applying for ahead of time. You'll be amazed how smart these people are, and we'll ask you a lot of the same questions. So do that. But the other thing you can do, if you go to networking events like our meetups, or you go to information sessions, and right now it's information session season, gang, don't sit there with your video off. turn it on, ask questions. That is a practice interview opportunity.
Thank you.
With zero stakes against you. You have nothing to lose and everything to gain, because those recruiters will remember that you spoke, you asked a question, you were interested in what they are. And here's the other thing, and let me do this as maybe an anxiety relief for you. When you're going through entry-level interviews, 90% of the questions are about you and how you fit the thing that they want you to do. So if you go in going, okay, here are the problems this internship or this job is trying to get me to solve. Here's how I solve them. Here's some examples of how to do it. You have everything you need to succeed in that interview. You just need to do it. So let that give you a little bit of rest and ease to know I'm not taking an oral exam or something like that. That's not how interviews work. It is a conversation, and you want it to feel like a conversation.
And also remember that you've already made it past that first step, that first test, and that you passed the resume review and the application process with flying colors. Now they want to see if you're a good fit. So keep that in mind. You've already done some winning. Now you just got to really wow them with, again, making sure that you're a good fit for them. But, at the same time, you want to make sure that they are a good fit for you and your values, like we mentioned earlier.
Absolutely. So let's talk about the most fun part of the job search process, or the internship process. When you get the offers, how do you handle that? What's the time frame? And then when do you shut it down and you take one and move on? Patrick?
Usually I put it on mute and I just start screaming and doing a little bit of this. And then I get back on the phone and become serious again, or as serious as I'm able to get.
I literally fist pumped the morning you called me, by the way. So just
there you go. I mean, hey, it's just the way it is. I mean, when somebody says, I love you and I want to give you a job, normally they don't tell you they love you for this, but when they want to give you a job, you feel good. And so I think the biggest thing to remember is that when you get that yes, then you say, thank you. And then you go into the conversation around, well, tell me about this compensation package. I'd love to learn more about, the well-roundedness of that aspect, not just salary, everything. And then take some time to review it. So even if it's like your dream job, as Matt was talking about, still show them the respect that you want to review the compensation package, get back to them in a few hours and or the next day, or maybe a couple days later on, just to make sure everything's the way that you're hoping it would be for that moment in time. It doesn't have to set you up for the rest of your life, but that moment in time. And I'm going to do a plug before my colleagues jump in there. We have awesome career coaches that do salary negotiation meetups. They do individual consultations, of course, if you just make an appointment, to help train you. For my females listening to us today, a lot of the research shows that on average, you'll leave $5 million on the table because you don't negotiate or you don't think that you should be negotiating. $5 million, I mean, I can do a lot with $5 million. So this is why we have these types of sessions. So don't just read about it. Practice it with your career coaches.
That's a really good idea. And I think one thing that I see students kind of asking me a lot of the times is they'll be like, well, when do I bring it up? Well, you bring up compensation, the packages, you ask questions about that, your retirement, all that stuff. You ask that after you've been offered the role and not before, because it comes off to the employer that you're not as interested in the role or helping the company. You're more interested in your own game, which they're not done. They know that you want to be paid for it, but they're wanting just to kind of see like how you initially come to it. And I will say from my experience, I had no idea what a 401k was. I'm a first generation college student, all this stuff I was getting. In the past, I've honestly just kind of taken what I was given. But now as I've progressed in my career, I understand more about those things. I've asked questions from financial advisors. I mean, Patrick has been really awesome in educating us too. So make sure you're okay with asking questions of others in your network about helping you look at packages.
And we have a financial literacy guy on campus that I know, Jay, you interviewed a couple sessions ago. So go back and review that career bits. But he's there. He's doing more workshops on all those things.
Yeah, go back to like episode 3. You can hear Brad talk on there, and all those services are still available. I was going to mention that. I was like, we have financial literacy experts on campus for you, so make sure you take advantage. That's an excellent point, though, too, Matt, because nobody ever talks about like the entire part of the compensation package and what that looks like. Jesse, I want to run this by you and see if you think this is a cool idea. If you've connected to an alumnus again and they've been part of your network throughout this process, once you get the offer, is that a good conversation to have with somebody? Say like, hey, they've offered me this job. Tell me what the benefits are like at working there. I mean, I've had that conversation with people that work at organizations before just to get a better sense of what it's like.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's absolutely a valid conversation to have, especially again to what Matt said earlier. after you've received the offer. I think it's not necessarily a comfortable conversation to have with someone when you're thinking about an employer, you're thinking about a position, but you're not even through the interview process. Not necessarily appropriate to be like, so tell me how much you make, you know. But afterwards, yeah, I think if that's something, if you've built enough rapport with that person and you've had at least a conversation with them before, I think that's definitely something that you should discuss if you have any questions. And you know that 49er alum love helping other alum, current students, so they're definitely an awesome resource for you through this process.
So what about once you've just made your decision and you know you're going to take job A over job D and F and G and all these others, what's the right thing to do with everything else that you've still got into the oven and the hopper?
Definitely don't ghost them. So the most professional way to do that is if you have signed on the dotted line, for example, with a position that you really want to go for, all the rest of them, you send them a great professional email. That doesn't have to be very long. It doesn't have to say, I'm decided to take a job with this XYZ company. Just say, thank you very much. I'm going to pull my candidacy out of this round. I wish you all the best, and then move on from there. You never know when these people might turn into your new employer or have another job or an opportunity or take over the company you ended up working for. Anything's possible. So professionalism is at the core of everything. And I think that's what we're all trying to get across, whether it's the interview, starting your job search process, whether you're doing networking, whether you're doing this whole thing. Please don't ghost. Please don't just give up on people. You never know when it's going to come right back at you, whether you believe it or not.
On the other side of that, don't accept one and then a day later get another one in and go, oops, sorry. Like,
yes,
that does not go well.
That is called rescinding an offer, or reneging on an offer, and that's a bad thing. Our office does not support that at all. That's not professional, and there's very, very few reasons why you might have to do that we would accept anyway.
And not to mention, like, you should be going through and like all these people that if you do, connect with them, make sure you're connecting with them on LinkedIn. Like after you've had an interview with them, do that follow-up letter to be like, thank you so much for your time. Or even if you're deciding not to take a role, thank them for their time, because it does take a lot of time for them to vet candidates, find candidates, interview candidates. And not to mention, if you do, renege on an offer, or if you, are not prepared for an interview, if you confuse an employer's name, not only does that hurt your career brand, but you hurt UNC Charlotte students and alumni as a whole, because then they assume like, oh, this student did that, they're from UNC Charlotte, so all students must be like that from UNC Charlotte. So you're not only hurting yourself, you're hurting all students. So really think through the repercussions that it can have on everyone.
And that's part of the whole process of evaluating the offers and things too. I mean, there's reasonable time frames that you can give an employer. Generally about 2 weeks is sort of the general role, but sometimes employers will let you, I've heard them say, hey, we're offering you this job right now in September. You've got till November the 1st to let us know, and so they'll usually communicate that with you. That's one of the conversations you definitely want to have once you're at that stage with an employer, but be respectful of their time and be willing to, if like, hey, I'm in the cooks for some other opportunities. I'm more interested in those than I am this. Be willing to say, okay, you know what? I'm going to say no right now. Thank you very much for your time, but keep that connection, keep that bridge open. Again, you never know, 2 years later, you might see each other. And let's be honest, you're applying for jobs and internships in the same industry. You're going to see these people again. You will, one way or another. So make sure you're keeping up your end of the bargain. One last thing I want to talk about here when we wrap up the conversation about the recruitment process is we've spent a lot of time talking about how you need to reach out to and connect with people. But once you're in the position you want to get to, you need to pay that back and pay that forward to be a connection for your younger classmates, your friends, be a recruiter for your organization at UNC Charlotte. Tell people, hey, if you have a great experience somewhere, tell them, hey, I had this great internship experience. You should take a look at it. You're some of the best advertisement a company can get. And if you're someone who's putting yourself out there constantly on LinkedIn and you're updating your profile and you're talking about the work you do, you're going to be someone that future students notice and connect to and want to talk to. So I encourage all of you, as you're looking for mentors in life, when you get to a certain point, it's time to be a mentor too. So definitely do that and be ready to flip that switch when the time's necessary.
Jay, and a quick plug, there's actually a really cool new platform that's coming out for all UNC Charlotte alumni, and students will soon have access to this as well. It's called the My49er Network. And this is a really cool way to continue to build connections, even after you have that amazing position that you're going for. But it's a really great way to continue, again, building your brand, learning more about, different opportunities. And it also has a mentoring platform built into it. So this is kind of the first time we've had a university-wide mentoring program, and it's for alumni helping other alumni, also alumni helping students. So keep an eye out for that. If you haven't registered for it, definitely go check it out. It's a really, really cool thing that we're getting started with this fall.
Excellent resource. Now, Matt, I know you had something called Big Brand Internships you wanted to talk about as well.
Yeah, so again, thinking about internship applications. So some employers, like Patrick mentioned, are going to do this way in advance. So just to give you an idea, right now, some of the bigger name brand, so these are not listed in Hire9er right now. You have to go to their careers page. But Blizzard Entertainment, so Blizzard Activision, game design, arts students, tech students, these are going to be great positions for you. They're all across the U.S. We also have Warner Media. They're looking for a lot of finance, tech, communication students. Facebook is looking right now for a lot of their tech students, and these are going to be all for either the spring or for the summer. Now, in Hire9er, there are a ton of positions. Like Ally Financial is already looking for their summer 2021 internships. We also have Lenovo. We have, let's see here, United Launch Alliance. They're all looking right now for spring and summer. So make sure that you are checking out those different careers pages and looking at the application Excel sheet Jesse was talking about. Make sure you go through and put like those deadlines. Even if you miss it this year, go back to it next year so you can reapply next year. And there is also an example of that particular spreadsheet in the career guide. If you go to career.uncc.edu on the front page, you'll see a link for the career guide. There is that, and there's also the budgeting sheet that you can use to kind of help you with what salary you're going to need to live and survive. So just make sure you stay on top. That's really the big part of all of this, staying on top of the game. It is a competition between you and millions of other people around the world who are looking for internships and jobs. So staying on top of your game is going to help you out a lot. And part of that is staying on top of dates.
And it sounds overwhelming. And I know, Jay, going back to your conversation around if I applied to 5 jobs, I'm good. No. There's a ripple effect to this recession, which means some industries are doing poorly, some industries are doing great, they have no clue how they're going to be doing next year. And as Matt alluded to, all these internships, they're looking for candidates now, which means if you wait until March and say, summer's coming up, I'm going to look for an internship, you got to scratch all those. And then you got to go find others that may or may not have the funds. And then more to that, there's a lot of freshman and sophomore training programs and attraction programs that companies are starting to do, which means that's your entree to that company for the next year to get an internship to continue your career. So expand your target, start early. And the great thing is even though this is overwhelming, you have these fine people and a ton of other fine people at the Career Center right there to help you along the way, free for life after graduation. So we're here to help. If you're not using the Career Center, okay, well, are you getting to where you need to go? If you're not getting to where you need to go, you might want to use the Career Center. Just saying.
Absolutely. That's a great way to end our conversation here today on Career Bits. You can follow all the happenings of the Career Center at career.uncc.edu. You can get to a link to Hire9er there. That's how you can make appointments with career coaches and also find out about all the cool events we've got coming up. Check out the events when you're looking in the events section and career events in Hire9er. Look at not only the career events, which is where your meetups and things like that are going to be that are led by industry professionals and our career coaches, but also look at recruiting events. That's where the information sessions that companies are holding are going to be, as well as a number of companies are doing like outside webinars and things. Google's got like a whole series of them, and we post them there in the recruiting event section. So check out both of those, RSVP to them, go to them, and participate as much as you can. And like Patrick said, we are here to help you. Follow us on social media at Niner Careers, and hey, help spread the word. Whether you watch this on our YouTube page or listen to it on your favorite podcast app, let other people know about the good stuff you got here from the Career Center. So for Patrick, Jesse, and Matt, I'm Jay. Thank you for listening to Career Bits. Talk to you again soon.